Bonjour, Kiwis. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Do all of those great things. And if you're back for another episode, you already know that I'm grateful. Thank you. I appreciate that, But this is a very different episode, okay, of the green season. And of previous seasons and episodes that I've done on my channel thus far. This specific YouTube video is going to be me sharing my experience on how I transitioned into a plant-based diet. This video is highly requested. I have been asked multiple times and I have just kind of ignored it. And you know what? I'm like, how many times are they gonna ask me about making a video about this, or even people inquiring with me about it in general outside of YouTube. So it's overdue. So without further ado, let's get straight to it, y'all. All right, so for starters, I want to say that I was not raised on a plant-based diet. I was not raised on a vegan diet. My mom, kudos, shout out to my moms. She raised me in the best way in which she thought that was best for me. So I'm truly grateful for that. But I wasn't raised on a plant-based diet or a vegan diet. I ventured into that clearly because this video is about my transition. But I am just going to try to keep it as short and as sweet and straight to the point as possible. But remember, of course, if you have any questions or concerns or want me to do a part 2 or something that's more detailed, please let me know. If this is not enough, if you want more, let me know, okay? What brought me to the point to where I wanted to just completely commit to a vegan diet, which is how it started off, was a vegan diet, was my daughter. She was a big inspiration because I brought her up on a plant-based diet, and I didn't know that she was even pretty much plant-based. Technically, she was vegetarian for a couple of months because I started off giving her, she started off on titty milk, and then I transitioned her into cow's formula and got her off of that and got her onto because she was lactose, it wasn't, she wasn't digesting it, and I'm not that person. I wasn't just like, I'm not about to keep putting my baby, having her spitting up because her body is saying no. And so then I transitioned into a non-dairy formula, still being stupid, and had her own soy formula. Even saying this is just like, with my knowledge now, it's just like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that she's not on that anymore. But on that, but even outside of that, she has not ever had meat. Cleo will be 2 in April. She's not ever had meat or cheese. If she has had anything like that, whoever gave it to her better not ever tell me, because I'm gonna wipe them off the face of the earth. But essentially, Cleo, because I realized that she didn't need meat or dairy to thrive and be smart and to grow and stay in her quote-unquote growing curve, that motivated and pushed me even more to keep her on that type of diet. And eventually I came to the mindset to where, I can't tell Cleo, hey baby, you not eating meat and you not eating dairy, but mama eating meat and eating dairy. I'm one of those action people. I teach her about what I do, and I had to eventually, let it go. And the way that happened, I was in a position, I got diagnosed with postpartum depression after I had my daughter. And so I went through a very rough, first off, my life has just been rough in general, challenges after challenges. But that specific part of my life was where, I was just in a very cloudy space mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I was in a very cloudy space just from my experiences with my daughter's dad. Like, all of these things tied into my change, for my diet. My pregnancy was an awakening experience. Me birthing her was an awakening experience for me. And the transition into my diet was also an awakening experience experience. But like I said, ultimately, because Cleo had been vegan and plant-based, that was one of the things. And then I started watching these videos by Ralph Smart, who has a challenge, the 7-Day Vegan Challenge. Just from his help emotionally, his videos helped me emotionally, spiritually, like they helped me all around. And he's been a vegan for over 13 years, and that he says that in like almost all his videos, and he just kept pushing the 7-Day Vegan Challenge, 7-Day Vegan Challenge. And this is around 2017 summer, is when I was really going through that tough time. And then toward the fall of 2017, is it 2017? Yeah, that's when I got pushed into a very uncomfortable challenge, uncomfortable position, to where I was kind of just like forced to be vegan. But essentially, prior to me being put in that situation, I was eating meat like once a day, and I was already like transitioning off of it because I was watching so many of his videos, so inspired, so motivated. I was awakening, all of these things were happening to me emotionally and spiritually. I was becoming back into alignment with my true self. Letting go of the past and learning to become more self-aware of my emotions, like all of these things tied into, my diet. And I didn't know this at the time, by the way. This is me speaking to you right now, with who I am today, with who I was then. I had no clue that all of these things tied into, in essence, what I was feeding my temple. And so pretty much I was like eating meat once a day, not because I just truly chose to, but because I couldn't afford to, I was living with someone else at the time, and these are people that ate meat. And what I did, because I was living with someone else, I only ate, the meal that I mostly ate from them was dinner, and that's what most likely would be the meat. But like for breakfast, I would have a smoothie. For lunch, I'm having, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch. So I was already, transitioning, and didn't really realize that I was transitioning into this type of diet. But that's what I was doing. And then I would have a snack, would be like probably like some pretzels, some other things that were probably still did have dairy in them. So technically, I wasn't paying attention to this stuff at the time, but this is just what I was eating. And so I eventually got forced out of that situation and put me into a place to where I really could not afford any, I could afford food, but to a point to where I couldn't even afford meat, just extra stuff. So during this time of my life, December 2017, I, had pretty much just made the commitment, like I'm gonna do it. And one thing that also pushed me over the edge was because, like I told you, I was already eating meat once a day, and then slowly I started like cutting that out, and I was just like eating like vegetable soup because I was realizing that I had like energy. I felt lighter. I felt good on the inside. And then as I was doing this, one of those days at work, this lady made some chili. And I remember this specific moment let me know that like I'm done. It let me know I was done because I already wasn't eating meat heavy. And so I was like, okay, she made some chili, I'll try it out. It's whatever. Child, when I tell y'all, the way that chili looked in a bowl is the way it looked when it came out. I was so uncomfortable. I felt disgusting. It was just very uncomfortable. Like I knew that it was not supposed to be in my system, and that also just like further pushed me even more. Like, okay, yeah, like I've been feeling the physical benefits and the physical cons of this type of diet of eating meat, and the pros of being vegan or whatever, and I committed. I was like, nah, I'm good. And from that point, like this phase of my life, I was committed, and I was vegan, and I was like, yeah, I was full of energy. I was moving into more of a spiritual alignment. I was awakening, and I wasn't even aware that I was awakening. And that's pretty much like in a nutshell how my transition happened. I was transitioning and didn't know that I was biggest thing for me was research, knowing what the effects of eating animal byproduct does to my body, and not even just doing research and knowing, but actually putting in action and realizing the difference between how I felt and how I currently felt on the diet with the diet change that I had made. It was just all too real, like it was all too real. And I realized that this is how I'm supposed to eat, that I'm supposed to eat alive. And I just started researching and doing these things and looking at different perspectives and, realizing, and making sure that I'm doing these things right. When I say like portion size, I'm like just still eating the right amount of food. I did not get sick. Most people get sick when they like, oh, I'm gonna just go vegan. And it's really because they don't have a why. They just go because it's a fad and they just want to test it out and blah, blah, blah. And it's like when you're making a diet change, most people's diets are 80% animal based and 20% food that's alive. And when you're making a diet change, people think like, oh, I'm gonna just go vegan. And they don't realize that they're cutting out 80% of their diet. So whether you're eating meat or not, you still need to make up for that 80% of your diet with the vegetables, with the quinoa, with these other things that are better for you, not just you still only eating 20% of vegetables, because that's not a balanced diet. You still have to eat a balanced diet. But I was eating a balanced diet because I knew how to eat. I've always been a big person about diet in general. It also wasn't a very hard transition for me because I didn't eat processed food like that. Like I had cut processed foods out years ago. Like I stopped eating highly refined foods a long time ago, high fructose corn syrup. So I had already been on a certain wave when it comes to the diet change. And that part of being vegan, well, even being quote unquote vegan, it still has highly processed foods in it. But I was moving into a more plant-based diet. But that's pretty much how that happened. The last time that I officially ate meat was like January of like last year, because I had that meal, that chili, in December. And in January, I like took a point with my aunt, like how you got that person in your family that make that food for you, that's that best food for you at all times, like whether that's your mama, your granny, your nana, whoever that is for you that make that meal or anything that they cook you eat. It was one of those things. My aunt Shanae had made some spaghetti and I was like, I guess I'll try, why not? Child, I didn't finish it. I was like, yeah, no, this not it. So that was the last time that I actually put meat in my mouth, and I will never do it again. Jesus can cook some meat and say, if I don't eat it, I'm going to hell. And guess where I'm going? To hell, because I ain't eating no meat. I'm not eating any animal-based product, any animal byproduct, because I know what it has done for me in all aspects of my life. I know that it has put me in a place to be my best and my greatest version. I know that it has put me in alignment with my life's mission and my soul's purpose. So my word to you right now is I challenge you to be your best and your greatest version. I challenge you to be your best and your greatest version by starting off with what you put in your temple, eliminating all of the artificial foods, the things that are not made to be put in your body. I don't care who you are. Think about a car, you know what I'm saying? If you are putting the wrong fuel in your vehicle, yeah, it'll turn on. It may work. You'll be like, oh, I'm good, baby. I could just... But eventually, it's not going to work for you. Eventually, you will die from heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's. All of these things are linked to diet. And this is something else that helped push me over the edge.